Welcome to Girl Bible, hosted by two women who aren't afraid to dive into anything and everything. This podcast is all about exploring life, laughing through the chaos, and finding common ground with people from all walks of life. No topic is off limits, no vibe is too weird. Come hang out with us every week for real talk, random tangents, and plenty of laughs. Grab your coffee and your chaos, and let's get into this episode. Today, we're talking all things politics. And no, Logan and I are not experts on anything political by any means, but we did feel like it was our responsibility to make a stand for what we believe in here at Girl Bible and just let our listeners know what they can expect here and that it's a safe space for everyone.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, I feel like there's too much going on in this political climate in the United States of America for us to just say nothing.
Mhm. And also in our intro videos, we kind of touched on, like, where we're from and stuff, and we didn't want people to kind of make assumptions if we weren't going to say anything, and that's something that's very important to Keisha and I, is that you should stand for what you believe in, and silence, like, saying nothing at all is kind of we view it as standing with a little bit, so we wanted to
Exactly.
say our piece.
Definitely. So, we just wanted to make it clear that Girl Bible supports all human rights. Period.
Plain and simple.
Mic drop.
Yup.
We both live in conservative states. However, we do not stand with conservative views by any
Mhm.
means. We believe that every single human being deserves to be treated like a human being. It should be
Yes.
that simple. However, we find ourselves in this crazy political climate where humanism is just getting lost in the chaos.
Yes. And one thing that I also wanna say is I have a dad who works in the oil field, and I'm sure most of you can make assumptions based on that, but just because you were brought up a certain way or you were taught not even taught, like, people around you have different opinions, doesn't mean that you can't form your own opinion and do your own research and not necessarily agree with what your parents, your guardians, your family members think. Like, you can I still love my parents, and I can and they still love me, and we can still clash on opinions and not necessarily think the same. And also wanna clarify that it's not like we disagree, my parents or my family and I disagree on everything, but there are things that we do disagree on, which is okay, I think, to
Yes.
have in families. Like, it's
And we
okay.
need to have a climate where discussions can be had and arguments can be made without it turning into an I hate you, you hate me
Right.
vibe, because that's completely unnecessary. If you can't have discourse and you can't have differing opinions and then still move forward, then what are you, 3 years old? Because that's the only age where your ego is driving everything and it's
Yes.
acceptable. After that point, you need to get over yourself and be able to hear some differing opinions. You don't have to accept them and take them on as your own. However, you can respectfully hear another person's point of view. Plain and
Yes.
simple.
And that's something we touched on the last episode too, like, hearing other people's perspective is very good, like, just because you don't necessarily agree doesn't mean that you guys can't still have a conversation.
Exactly. And I'd like to add that although, they might have differing opinions, I am clearly a Black woman and your family has done nothing but welcome me into their
Yeah.
home. They don't have a single racist bone in their bodies. I just wanted to make that clear on the podcast for any new listeners
Yes.
here that don't have any
That
idea.
don't
Maybe
know.
maybe they heard your snippet and they're like, "Oh my gosh, poor
Yeah.
Logan." Like it's
Yeah, they
nothing
probably
like
were
that.
thinking that. No,
It's
if
nothing like
anything,
that.
it's just more
It's
like
just
how
differing political views and what's happening necessarily, like, behind closed doors, which is their
yes.
own business.
And especially, I feel like, politics can have, like, an effect on certain, like, career fields also, and so that's
Yes,
kind of a lot of it as well. So, but
true.
Nonetheless, I think we wanna get into some
What
of the
is
things that are.
happening?
Yes, and
What is
also
happening?
Keisha and I were just talking about this before we started filming that, like, both of us, politics are something that kind of are unsettling. And I'm not very tapped in, even though I know that's a super, like, ignorant response to have, especially with everything that's going on. But a lot of the time, I'm not diving in. I'm not like, what's happening politically today? Like, that's not something I'm personally doing. So a lot of this stuff I don't have a lot of background on. I'm not exactly sure. We just kind of looked it up and thought we wanted to, like, talk about it.
Yes, so these are completely our opinions. We're not saying these are research backed. Neither of us are poli sci majors, so this isn't, what we're super interested in by any means. But we did feel like staying silent on the topic was way worse than at least getting out and saying something. Um, with that being said, there is so much that has happened in the US in 2025 that is causing this unsettling feeling in our guts. And I don't want to say we're avoiding it because we're not avoiding it necessarily, but we do both practice this idea. I'm going to use this from yoga, but this idea of like saucha. And it's the idea that you're keeping your mind, body, soul, your speech clean, the energy pure, um, everything just kind of cleared out. And I know that sounds whatever. I'm not sure. Ignorant, like Logan said, um, out of touch. I'm not sure. But it is your job to protect your own energy every single day. And if you're just constantly consuming this negative information that's coming in, it weighs so heavy on you in ways that you cannot even believe. Like it almost tightens up my chest every single
Yeah.
time that I'm like watching the news and I can feel my
Yes.
eyes like welling up. I'm an empath. Logan's a huge empath as well. And so
Yeah.
when someone's suffering or we see somebody being mistreated, we literally feel it. We can feel it. I don't care if they're thousands of miles away, I can feel their pain.
Yeah, you can see right now. But
Same. I was like, what are we doing? Are we both going to cry on this
yeah, I
podcast,
think I
episode
I
3?
started to I started to tear up a little bit on the last episode too, when we were like, the last topic we were talking about. I can't even remember what I was saying, but
This is how we
we
always are. We'll be like,
yeah,
why are we crying? But
are we
it's that
crying?
serious.
But yeah, this
So,
is probably gonna be a
s-
tough
episode.
episode.
For sure. First things that happened, we had massive federal layoffs, which, I mean, at this point, if you voted for Trump, no offense, like I said, I'm not, I am not
Not
here
here to judge.
to judge you. I am not coming from a place of shame on you, wrong, wrong, wrong. I know everyone had their reasons. I know everyone had whatever. We all have free will when we walk into that booth. We all have a responsibility and a right when we walk into that booth. So if you went in and you voted, honestly, you exercised your right. However, he outlined this in Project 2025. So if you're acting shocked that any of this is happening, then you did not do your research and you were not an informed voter. And that, my friend, is on you at this point. I am going to call you a responsible party to what is happening because no offense, this isn't a secret project. He was very clear as to what he
No,
stood
it was
for.
all over everywhere. It was everywhere.
There's a reason people did not stand for it, and it's because he outlined exactly what he was going to do. And now he is executing those said plans that you voted for if you were to go into that booth and circle the little circle that said Trump. First thing that happened was massive federal layoffs. Scary, crazy, affecting
Yes.
more people than I think realized, including people who voted
Yeah.
for him.
One of my friend's grandmas worked, like, for the government, and she was,
Got
like,
laid
laid
off.
off. Yeah. I mean, her situation was kind of laid out pretty nice, like, she got to do something where she, like, took out retirement or something, so she's gonna be okay, and also she does 2 things, so this wasn't her only source of income, and she was close to retirement anyways, but
Which is
gosh,
lucky.
It is lucky. I couldn't imagine someone, like, who's a
There were
single
a bunch
parent
of new
working for the
people.
government. Yeah.
Exactly,
No.
like,
Yes.
new hires were getting let go, and that's sucky, to say the
'Cause
least.
she worked for the federal government for a while, and I feel like she felt pretty, like
Secure.
I mean, as long as you're not doing anything shady, like, why
Yeah, and
would
you're
you
you're
really.
upholding your duties, you're doing your job as it was outlined, you think
Yeah,
you're gonna be fine. But I feel like that's also the problem with the people who voted in this scenario, is that everybody thinks it's not going to be me, and that's the
of
problem.
course. Well,
Like,
and
when
that's the
you're
other
voting,
thing.
you think it's not going to affect you. I saw a story on the internet, I cannot remember the guy's name. However, he voted for Trump knowing Trump's stance on immigrants. His wife was an immigrant.
See?
They
This is
go
what
they go on vacation. They get back from vacation. She does not have a US passport because she is not a US citizen. And guess what? She's detained. She's deported. And he's sitting there like, has no idea. I didn't know he was gonna. How did you not know?
what
That's
was
my question. How did you not know? Because you literally were laid out the entire plan regarding immigrants and deportation before you voted, and then you still voted for this man, and now you're shocked that it happened to you. And that's what's wrong with this, is that every time you vote in there, you're in your own little box thinking, oh yeah, he's gonna deport everybody else, not me. Like, that's what's wrong with our voting makeup right now, is that you're not thinking, how would this affect me? It doesn't matter if you look black, brown, if you're gay, lesbian, straight. Vote as if everything on the ballot
would
affects you
affect you. Yes.
as a human.
Where was she from? Where was the wife from?
I literally cannot remember. Like, I just stored this in the
Okay.
back of my brain as a crazy story. I was like, this is what I'm talking about. How did you think it wasn't going to affect you when you know that your wife is not from this country? And then you go on vacation out of the country and you get stopped at the border and you're shocked? Like, this is
You're
crazy
like,
to
"Ah,
me.
wait, what? Trump standing on business?" Bro, he
Exactly.
literally I can't remember the last time. Again, not very tuned in, but everything he said he's going to do, most of the time he follows through. He's a businessman.
Coming
He's
out and
not.
really doing this stuff. Like,
Yeah.
what? What?
And
He's
also,
executing the plans that he
yes,
set forth to do.
yes. On the topic of immigrants, I saw this post, and it was, a Native American guy. He posted this video, and he was just like, "When I PO," it was a POV video. He's like, "POV, when I hear a white guy talking about how much he doesn't like immigrants," and then it was like popped back to the Native American guy's POV, and it was like, "You are an immigrant. Way back.
Literally that part.
I'm Native American. I'm Native American." Like, I think that's what people forget all the time is, like, we came in and horrifically stripped people of their land, and then still to this day, reses, we just shove them on these small pieces of land, let them have their own jurisdiction. It's horrific. Like, it makes me feel sick to my stomach, like, it's
But
awful,
to your
and
point, how dare you, as a person who is a non-native, have the audacity to then want other immigrants out of the country, when that was the whole basis of
when
the United States starting.
we are,
Everyone
like,
wanted a different life, so they came here to the US, they colonized it, and now you're gonna say, "But no one else, like, no one else can do that. No one else can start a better
that's,
life here."
like, one of like, one of my most favorite things, kind of, like, when I was younger, I was like, "There's so many people coming to the US to experience new things." My uncle is a college basketball coach. He would bring in international players, like, they just wanted to come to the US and hoop and have their
Yep,
education paid for. Like,
yep.
that's such a cool concept, and then now we're, like, shooing people away for what? Because you're saying that they're causing crime, that they're doing horrific thing to the people of the US. That's why would you go somewhere you're not supposed to be and cause a ruckus? Tell me why. Like, seriously, someone if that's truly what you think, I dare you to go do research and look up how many immigrants are actually doing that and how many
Oh,
people are
I
from
already
the
looked
US.
it up. I
Oh,
was
good. Okay,
looking
good.
up, I just looked up murders. Let's just go with that. Let's just go with murders because that was the huge, thing, they're murdering
Concern?
and in his speech, if you watched the debate, which was the most unhinged thing I've ever witnessed in my life, he literally said immigrants were eating people's pets,
I
and I
did see
quote.
that.
And
I
I
did see
quote.
that.
I was like and then they literally had news, they're like, "No one's saying that." Like, we're getting news that that's not true and that
Yes,
he
that's, like,
no
actually
one's
not true.
reporting that their pets are being eaten, but you're going for
Sure, run
the
with it.
wow
And
factor on the debate here. But I looked up, you know, statistics on murderers, and, it's actually white men, number 1 murderers, followed by black men, number 2 murderers. But okay, that's all
yeah,
I'm
but
gonna
sure.
say. That's that on that, like, I'm okay, alright,
That
that's all.
shows us exactly I seen what I needed to see, and have you seen that?
I told it to Dan yesterday, I was like, actually, you're the danger." That's
You're the
I
danger.
just kidding. He was like, "Why are you saying that?" I was like, "I'm not saying it's you specifically, but
You, but it's, like, your demographic.
statistically, I should be the most afraid of a white man in this country because the numbers are numbering against you." That's all I'm gonna
Yeah,
say. Now, on
gosh.
that note, we'll slide into these ICE raids that are happening and some of the protests that are going on, like the one that's going on in LA, and the way that it's being spun in the media versus what's actually happening is kind of
Yes,
scary.
I've been seeing a lot of, because Keisha and I have talked about this before. I went through and I blocked, like, a bunch of media, like TikTok, Instagram, a bunch of stuff on my TikTok because I was sick of seeing, like, this weird stuff that I didn't wanna see.
Yeah,
And now I feel like I do get kind of more, like, of an unhinged whatever, but I've been seeing a lot of TikToks, people in the protests saying, "The media is lying, it's not that bad," and I was also talking to my best friend the other day, and she was saying that, like, I can't remember exactly how we came up on this, but she was saying the protests had been peaceful this thus far, and they were sending in some sort of reinforcement, whatever, and I was like, "That's like, we have the right to a peaceful protest. Sending in a bunch of soldiers and whatever they were is just, like, egging it on, asking for something worse to happen, in my opinion. Like, why are you sending a bunch of federal troops in to a peaceful protest? Like, what, like, are you guys gonna start something? Like, what?
exactly. But the whole point is changing the narrative. So, being in control of the media and what we're seeing, changing the narrative to where it's like, "Oh, it's riots, the protests are crazy." That's the spin they're giving us so that when they send the troops in, it now makes sense as to why they're there. When in
Yeah,
reality, it's a peaceful protest going on. All they're doing is protesting, which is our right. They have freedom of speech. They're allowed to hold their signs and say their piece and chant their chants. And instead, when you send people in and it's a peaceful protest, that appears to be very aggressive and completely unnecessary. No one's going to support it. But if you spin it to where the protests are getting out of control and the people are rioting, it's getting crazy. Now people are like, "Yeah, send in the troops. We need to stop this at all costs." It's like, "What?" It's crazy right now that we live in a time where the media can be so manipulated to fit any narrative. It doesn't matter what the narrative is, any narrative, to the point where as a consumer of the media, you have to really research and do your due diligence to know what you're accepting as truth versus what has been doctored to make you feel a particular way. And that's our job as the consumer right now of media, etc. You need to
Yeah.
be well informed and do your research before you come to any sort of conclusion because it's your responsibility as a human. Before you just throw out, "Oh, no, they were doing this and that." Research. That's all I'm gonna say. Research. You need to dive in, do a deep dive. The media is lying to you. Television and
Yes.
news sources have been bought out, and they are no longer just reporting
No.
pure journalism.
Um, I should find it, and I'll try to link it under whenever we post this, but I took an intro to mass media class, and there was this like, web kind of thing, and it showed you, like, where things kind of stood on, like, the how much bias do they have and, like, which direction they lean, and then it was like a scatter plot almost.
Yeah,
But, like, yes, Keisha's so right. You have to do a deep dive, reading 1 or 2 different articles from either the same publication or, like, 2 publications that tend to lean the same way is not going to it's not enough. Whenever you're researching something, you should if you can't find a non-biased source, and if you're not sure if the source is non-biased, look into them. Look to see who they're owned by. But, like,
exactly. If you do
you
enough
should
research, you can see where it's coming from and why it's leaning the way that it's leaning.
yes. And if you're not willing to do that, whatever, at least look at a right-leaning article and a left-leaning article.
And
Like,
know that
w
it's landing somewhere in the middle of that.
yeah.
But we're fortunate in the sense of having social media now to where we can get an inside view if you really wanna dive in deep, and you can get an inside view to the protests from the protesters standing right there, whether or not you live close to it and you're actively participating. It gives you an insight as to what's going on in a sense that maybe you wouldn't necessarily get from a journalism perspective, and I'm not
Mhm.
counting social media in any way as, like,
Uh,
your source.
reputable, yeah.
Yes, exactly. Like I said, like, take that with a grain of salt, but it does give you like a live look at it without somebody narrating a story that they want you to hear, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, and, like, no matter what they're saying, most of the time you can see what's going on. Like, of course, they can edit it, but, like, you can still form your own
Yeah,
opinion on whatever.
exactly. And I
Also
have friends who come from immigrant families. Obviously, I'm a minority myself, so I just wanted to be very clear. I stand with all people. All people, especially all minority people, 100%. I stand with you. I see you. Anything I can do to participate in these protests, these peaceful protests, and I don't agree with ICE raids and sending people to these prisons and deporting people
yes,
and ripping families apart. I don't think anybody who stands for humanity should stand for ripping families apart. I don't care where you're from.
yes, and I just wanna say I 100% agree with everything that Keisha just said.
So,
It's very upsetting and unsettling. Also, embarrassingly enough, I did not know what ICE sorry, ICE stood for, so I just looked it up in case any listeners or watchers aren't sure, it's the US Immigration and Customs Enforcement. That's what it stands for, if anybody was just
beautiful.
curious.
I love that you added that for a little,
I'm hoping
educational
well,
info.
yeah,
Yeah, we
hoping
just
that'll help some
educated
people.
folks. Uh,
'Cause yeah.
Now what's happening is the No Kings protest, which they
Wait, I don't
said
know.
okay, okay. So the No Kings protest started June 14th, which was what, yesterday?
Yeah, today's the
Yesterday.
15th.
Okay, and over 5 million people participated in the No Kings protests across more than 2,000 locations, and it was the largest anti-Trump demonstration to date. So,
Oh,
there
because they're
there
saying that he's, like, becoming a a dictator? Is that why it's called No Kings?
yeah, basically I don't know if you knew about, like, big, beautiful bill. But there was a little clause. I don't know if that's what they call it, a clause, an amendment. There was something in the bill that basically would have made it to where anything that Trump wanted to do that was considered illegal federally that normally in a court could be overruled, and that's kind of how they've stopped him in the past basically, but they hid it in this bill, like hid it, so you'd really have to dive into the bill, and a lot of people were voting to pass the bill even without reading, is my guess, which
Right.
should be illegal. If you are in a position of power to where you're voting on these things and you don't read the whole thing through, you
Up
should be,
yours.
immediately removed from your position. But I heard an actual representative state, "I didn't know that was in the bill when I voted for it," which is jail.
What?
That
That's
should
your
be jail.
job!
Thank
That's
you,
your job.
exactly. That's how I felt about
Right.
it. I'm like, "How dare you?" That's the best answer you could come up with. I don't care if that was the truth. Give the American people something else. Give me a different reason for why you voted for this, because I didn't know it was in there, that's jail. I'm sorry, jail. Anyways, there was a, whatever you wanna call it, I don't know what they call it, an amendment in there that stated anything that he brought into
There's
office or
no
whatever that he was trying to pass, that the federal judge in the federal court could not overturn it. So it would basically give him,
Does
like,
nobody see, like, it okay,
it
if
would
you're
give him,
tuning
like,
in,
sovereign power, which is like,
yeah,
what? That's, like, the exact
something
opposite
we
of our government, what we stand
that's
for.
what I'm saying, something we fought so long to, like, be free of. What?
Exactly.
Be for real. Okay.
So, the protests are happening, um, obviously to have him impeached, but we shall see, because this man has 9 lives. That's all I can say. Like, if you
Right? That's
I
what I'm
just
saying.
think it's
How
crazy that people voted for a felon. That's all I'm gonna say. All I'm gonna say is, if you voted for Trump, whatever, 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 okay? I'm not here to poo on you, okay? I love all people and I stand by that. Like, I'm going to assume ignorance is bliss, and you had to do what was best for you, and you really thought that Project 2025 was going to benefit you, whatever. That's fine. Okay, I can wrap my head around this. However, you knowingly voted for a felon, and the felony, it
that's
wasn't
half the
like
thing.
grand larceny, it wasn't murder. The felony was literally turning against your own country. What? I can't. I cannot. I cannot.
Also, how like, I the one thing that I just can't with also is, like, he was, like, really in, like, close ties with people like Jeffrey Epstein, and
Exactly.
if you don't know what Jeffrey Epstein was doing, and no judgment because I didn't know until just kinda recently, I've been doing a lot like, I've literally been binging this podcast that I was
Yeah,
telling you about.
and
She has
learning
an
from it
episode
more,
on
deep dive.
yes, she has an episode on Jeffrey Epstein. He was, like, having little girls like, he was paying little girls to massage him. Okay, and people are gonna say, "Well, they were saying that they were 18." These girls did not look 18. He knew that they weren't 18. The staff was, like, knew that they weren't 18 either, paying them to give him massages, being disgusting. On a private island that's super weird and suspicious. He would always show up with girls who didn't look that old, but he would put them in college sweatshirts, like, to make it look like, "You're weird, that's disgusting."
It's very Blink
Donald
Twice.
Donald it is Blink Twice. It is, it is, it
Like,
is, it
when you
is.
said private island, it's, like, so Blink Twice, which is
It's
terrifying.
everyone needs to go watch that movie. It's so good.
Unless you're under the age of, like, 18, don't watch
Right,
it. I'm
right.
sorry,
Don't
it's too
watch
dark,
it.
it's too dark.
It's very dark, it's very dark. But it's an A24 film, and I love A24 films. I'll always be a ride or die. But it's
Also,
disgusting,
I love Channing Tatum, even though he plays a huge perv in that movie, like,
right?
oh, I still love you.
And I'm so sad him who was he just with? They broke up.
Zoe Kravitz.
I liked them together, but
I did too.
they worked on that movie together, and
I
I think
know.
that's why it's so good. But anyways.
That was a side note.
Um, yeah, sorry. That was, off
The
topic, but
point was that Trump was close with Jeffrey Epstein or involved in some way, shape, or form in that
who's a
circle.
known pedophile, and then he offed himself in jail also. So,
Allegedly.
allegedly. Oh my god, don't even get okay, wait,
Allegedly.
we have to do conspiracy theories later
I know.
because
I wanna do an episode on conspiracy theories. I have so many conspiracy theories, but
on the big
yes,
yeah, we're 2
allegedly.
of the biggest, yeah, allegedly. Anyways, that's disgusting. That's disgusting. It's
No,
gross,
it is.
and also, it's just upsetting because, like he just said, we're not here to be like, "Shame on you, you voted for Trump," but I find it hard to believe that even though I feel like a lot of white men are like, "I'm not affected by voting for Trump, blah, blah, blah." I know you have a mom, you have a significant other, you have a daughter that it is affecting. So also take a second to think outside of yourself.
That
Watch
part.
all this happen and pray that it doesn't happen to an important woman in your life. Because,
That
like
part.
Keisha said, everybody thinks, "Oh, it's not gonna happen to me, it's not gonna happen to me." Yeah, buddy, it might not happen to you, but it could happen to your mom or your sister or your wife or your daughter. So
Exactly.
maybe think twice about yourself, and like Keisha said, think about how will this affect me, but maybe not only how it'll affect me, how it'll affect the other people that I love in my life.
It's that simple. And if you can't see yourself in another human being, then I cannot help you. I cannot help you. If you cannot see yourself in any other human being, I don't know what to do to help you because every time I see a human, I don't care what they're up to, I can easily see myself in those people. It doesn't matter what they look like. It doesn't matter what sex they are. It doesn't matter what ethnicity they are, what race they are, what class system they're in. I see myself in everyone. That's the beautiful part of being a human being is that we're all one. So if you don't see that, I don't know.
Yes, yeah,
Get off the
yeah,
podcast. Like,
you're not our audience, and if you're watching this and you're like, if you're what Keisha just described, get out of here, please.
and all
Do
I
us a
know
favor.
is Girl Bible is standing on business. Business.
We don't tolerate shady shit.
That simple.
Mic drop.
On that, we will end that episode there. There's so much more we could obviously talk about, and Logan and I have so much more to learn about before we can really dive
Yes.
into the topic. But I feel like we kind of summed it up there.
Yeah.
And
And
we
and
hope that everyone stays safe out there and knows that you're not alone. And if you know of a way for Girl Bible to show our support, go ahead and leave us a comment or DM us at Girl X Bible, and we'll do our part. I know that for sure.
yeah. And that being said, throughout the video, if we were misinformed on anything or we said anything incorrectly, also please let us know because we're super open to educating ourselves and we're not afraid to be wrong, especially in
100%.
situations like this. So please just let us know because we will want to get that figured out.
Thank you. Okay, babes, that's the tea, the sermon, the whole dang chapter for today's episode of Girl Bible. If you laughed, nodded, gasped, or even whispered, OMG, same, at any point, then my job here is done. Don't be shy, hit follow so your podcast app serves up fresh wisdom every week like it's your spiritual espresso. And if you've got a sec, drop a review. It helps more fabulous weirdos like us find our way home. Want to keep the convo going? Come say hey over on IG at GirlXBible. Seriously, slide into the DMs. I do not bite unless it's over snacks or opinions on zodiac signs. Until next time, remember, you're the main character, the plot twist, and the moral of the story. Stay bold, stay weird, and stay flipping iconic. This is Girl Bible signing off.